Hey there, this is Heather with TwoBlooms.com, and in this Lightroom tutorial, I'm going to show you how to fix overexposed bright images and turn them into something that looks great. So I'm going to share with you 3 different tricks on how to do this. So we're going to take a photo that looks like this, very washed out, very overexposed, and turn it into something like this. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is obviously come over to the develop panel. Now it's worth noting that I am in Lightroom Classic CC. So if your version looks a little different, you might be in Lightroom CC. Just wanted to point that out because sometimes there can be a little bit confusion because the Lightroom CC is a very different interface. But same rules apply. You can still use the same tools that I'm about to show you. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is the first step in my workflow, and that is always to, I hate saying the word slap on a preset, but that's how I usually start it. So I'm going to choose my Lightroom collection, Recollections collection, and come down to Perfect Childhood. Now, you might be thinking, well, this looks even worse. I specifically chose this preset because of what it does to the green. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually adjust the exposure. Now, you might be thinking, well, obviously it's overexposed. Of course, you're going to check or adjust the exposure. And yes, that's true. But sometimes when you're using presets, you might think, well, this preset doesn't work because, it doesn't fix my photo right off the bat. But sometimes you need to tweak your photos if they're taken in bad lighting or if the exposure's off, whatnot. So it's good to know how to adjust presets if you're using them. Now you can use any preset or any kind of hand edits that you want, but the main focus is going to be the basic panel for now. So I'm just adjusting my exposure just a little bit. That looks about good. The next thing I want to do is just make sure that I tone down my highlights. There's a lot of highlights in this photo and I want to tone them down. I still like that because it's obviously sunny outside and I want to emphasize that on the bubbles and the hair. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull some more shadows back. I'm more of a contrast-y editing person. I don't like too many non-shadows. I couldn't think of the word. And then I'm going to actually add in some whites just to give it a little bit more contrast. And this slider, when I added the preset, it decreased a lot of blacks, but I want to add them back because it adds some more contrast to the shadows. And that's pretty good. We can always come back and adjust later as needed. So with a preset and the basic panel sliders, that's looking pretty good so far. Now we still have a ways to go. So first up was changing the exposure and the sliders. The next thing I'm going to do is head on down to the HSL panel, which is hue, saturation, and luminance. So I always like to work left to right, so I'm going to start with the hue. Now, you can see from the lighting and the preset that I used, his skin tone turned a tiny bit orange. I mean, he is kind of tan in this photo, but I want to make sure that there's no like weird orange skin going on. So I'm going to grab this little eyedropper here and I'm going to click on his skin and just drag down. Okay. And when I'm dragging down, you can see it's turning red, or if I'm dragging up, it's turning yellow. Actually, I'm going to just reset that because I don't really want to change the hue of his skin now that I come to think of it. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is actually adjust the yellows. So the greens in the grass, the grass is really yellow. So I want to kind of take that out. So I'm going to use the little dropper, click on the grass and just increase it slightly to about 20, 23. That looks pretty good. So most of the yellowness in the grass has been taken out because I really like that natural, clean green color grass. The next thing I'm going to do is head over to saturation. Now this is where I'm going to kind of take out some of those oranges in his skin. So I have the little dropper again, and I'm just clicking on the orange and just going down just slightly. I don't want to lose too much saturation because then his skin is going to start to look gray, and we don't want that because that doesn't look any more natural than orange. Yellow, I'm going to click where the yellows are and just take them down just a little bit more. And the greens look pretty good as well. Now for luminance, I am going to pretty much leave that as is. The luminance basically adds light or decreases the light. So I like how much light is in here already. Now if I were to touch on the greens and bring it down, it kind of gives it a more deep look. But I don't really want that. Right about there is good. I want some light, but I don't want it overly bright. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, so that was trick number 2, is to adjust your HSL panels. Now the third thing to do, I'm going to just add some sharpening while we're down here, is to add a vignette. Now to save time, I always just come over here to a preset. If you don't have a vignette preset, you can make one. It's really easy, or you can come over down here to your effects panel and just adjust the vignette as needed. Now, if you start to get too heavy of a vignette, that looks pretty crazy. So I don't really like going past 20 usually, depending on the photo. So I'm going to keep it right about here, and that's looking pretty good. Now, the last thing that I want to touch up on is the tone curve. Now, when I added the preset, it did apply a lot of matte in my shadows, which isn't usually my go-to look. So I'm going to drag this point down just ever so slightly. I still have a little bit of matte in the back. I'm also going to pull this point down ever so slightly again. And that gives me a little bit more contrast, a little bit more blacks, and it just makes the image pop more. So you can see those 3 tricks, actually trick 4 was the tone curve bonus. We really brought this image into something usable by using a preset, by using the basic panels, and knowing how to adjust your HSL panels. So that's pretty much it. I really hope that this helps you edit your photos. If you have any kind of overexposed photos, that these tips help you save them, because some of the time, or I should say most of the time, depending on your camera settings and your light settings, they can be salvaged, especially with the gear that you're using. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for future videos and be the first to know when I share a new Lightroom tutorial. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.